I confess, of all of your teachings, that question that he had is the one that I've wrestled with the most, and I think it has to do for me with the fact. It seems like it has to do with the fact that awareness is not an object. So when you're asked the question, how do you know you are aware? It used to be, well, I have the register of the presence of my body. Not to say that awareness is the body, but the body, that register of here I am is through the body. That was but it's I guess I presupposed that in order for awareness to be registered, there had to be some sort of subtle object.
Yes.
So what it seems to indicate to me is that although awareness is not an object, this nothingness is not exactly nothing. It is something.
When you say this nothingness, what
awareness. Awareness is something. It's just not an object. It's like a complement.
It's not nothing. Yes.
It's not
Awareness
nothing.
is not nothing.
Awareness is not nothing.
It's not something. It's not nothing.
It's not something. It's not nothing. So the only word I can think of is it's a complement. There is this other world, which is not the world of objects. It's not just a blank.
Yes.
Netty. You
Yes.
get to a point. There's
Yes.
nothing. There's nothing.
It's not just a blank.
Nobody
Yes.
look. But there isn't nothing. It's something. It's just not an object. And maybe you could
Yes.
elaborate on
You
that.
see, the reason we think awareness is nothing is because we think that all of this is something. If you think you're seeing something in the waking state, then you think that deep sleep will be nothing. But if we realize that in the waking state there are no things, it's just consciousness, then we realize that deep sleep is not a blank, empty nothing, or indeed the experience of consciousness is not a blank, empty nothing. But the problem is, the underlying problem is the deep belief we have, and this belief outlives many years of non-dual exploration. This has been my experience. It is the belief that now it is I, the body, that is aware of my experience. That is the reason we have this problem. Because it seems now for all of us, including myself, that experience is perceived from the perspective of the body. I close my eyes, the sight of the room disappears. Therefore, it's so obvious, isn't it, that consciousness must be located behind the eyes. Because I see everything when I look in this direction, I see everything in front of me. When I close my eyes, everything in front of me vanishes. Therefore, the logical conclusion is consciousness is located in the body behind the eyes. Hence the belief, it is I, the body, that is aware of my experience. And it is because of this deep feeling that it is I, the body, that is aware, as opposed to the understanding that it is I, awareness, that am aware, that we have this difficulty. If it is clear to us now that it is I, awareness, that is aware, and that we see the world as if from the perspective of the body, but that the awareness with which we experience the body and the world is not located in the body or the world, but the body and the world is located in awareness. then the question of awareness being aware of itself is just obvious. It is obviously awareness's primary experience to be aware of the experience of being aware. So we really have to, if there is a lingering belief, it is I, the body, that is aware, then that belief will make it impossible to understand that awareness is aware of itself in the absence of objects. We have to realize first that it is now awareness that is aware of experience. It is not the body that is aware of experience. The body is experienced. It doesn't do the experiencing.
It's such a tussle between it's so counterintuitive to so many years of training, you know.
It's a tussle, but just, I mean, this is only an image, but it's an image that shows how persuasive the waking state point of view is. Imagine that you fall asleep in Garrison. So Mark falls asleep in Garrison. But he dreams he is John on the streets of New York. Now when John looks at the streets of New York, he sees whatever is in front of his eyes. When he closes his eyes, the streets of New York vanish. So he quite reasonably assumes that the consciousness with which he is experiencing the streets of New York lives just behind his eyes. But what is John's consciousness? Where does it really reside? In Mark's mind, in bed in Garrison. But the illusion from John's illusory point of view, that the belief that the knowing with which I know my experience lives inside my eyes or inside my head, it is so strong. And his entire experience of the streets of New York seems to confirm his belief that the knowing with which he knows his experience lives inside the body. Why couldn't exactly the same thing be true of the waking state? Because if we explore our experience, everything suggests that it is. Because our experience is not that consciousness is in the body. The body is a series of perceptions and sensations that appear in consciousness. It's a real confrontation. This is the root of the issue. The belief and the feeling that consciousness lives in and shares the limits of the body. It's absolutely the crux of the matter. If this knot is untangled, all the other knots get untangled very easily.
Could we say that the overlooking of itself, of awareness through thought, is its own creativity?
Absolutely.
Could we say that in a way, the other quality of awareness, so it's present, aware, and creative? Could we say that?
Yes. It's pure creativity because awareness is empty. It has the possibility within it to take any form. It's why William Blake said, all things possible to be believed are an image of truth. All things, even the most crazy thoughts, even the most absurd thoughts, the most untrue thoughts, are an image of truth. In other words, are a modulation of awareness. Everything, every sensation, every perception, every thought is a modulation of awareness. And it's precisely because awareness is empty that it has the capacity to take on all names and forms. It's because the screen is transparent that every color can appear on it. If the screen was tinged blue, then only bluish images would be possible. But it's precisely because the screen is transparent that all colors are possible. So it's because awareness that is empty that all experience, however wonderful or awful, is possible. And as such, it is infinite creativity. It even has the possibility, the capacity to appear in a form that seems to veil it. Just as the transparent screen can appear as a landscape and as a result seem to veil itself. It never really does veil itself, but it seems to. Yes, that is its own creativity. So awareness is infinite freedom. But if we go even further with that question, why manifestation? From the point of view of awareness, that there is no manifestation. It's hard to think about this, but from the point of view of awareness, nothing new ever comes into existence. From the point of view of the screen, nothing new appears. When the car enters the scene, nothing new has happened from the point of view of the screen. Nothing new has come in from outside. It's just experiencing its own ever-present self. That's why I know you have heard this several times. That's why in the Bhagavad Gita it says, that which is never ceases to be. That which is not never comes into existence. That which is awareness never ceases to be, and nothing other than that comes into existence. Existence means, it comes from two Latin words, to stand out of. So to exist means to stand out from the background of awareness. From awareness's point of view, nothing comes into existence. Nothing stands out from itself. It's only from the point of view of one of the characters, from the illusory self, that there are things which exist, things that have their own independent existence. For awareness, nothing exists. It is, I am. Shakespeare said, all things seem but cannot be. Things seem to have their own independent existence, but they have no reality in themselves. Their being belongs to awareness. Your dilemma is whether to believe the conditioning that you have received at the hands of Western culture, or whether to believe your experience. That's where it's at for you.
So today, when you said awareness, where we were, I believe that you were talking about awareness, it's not something and it's not nothing. I hadn't heard you say that before.
Well, that was because I was trying in this very minute way to completely dissolve in a very detailed way, but in a very experiential way, our conviction that there is something other than consciousness. So we think there are things. We think there is something, and in reference to that belief, we conceptualize awareness as nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So we think there are things, called objects, that is, subtle things, thoughts and feelings, or material things, bodies and objects. And then as opposed to that, we think we conceptualize consciousness as being not a thing, empty, void.
Yes.
And then we end up with statements such as form is emptiness and emptiness is form. which is a legitimate statement, but it's basically saying nothing is something and something is nothing.
Right.
But these ideas are based, that they are said in response to the belief that there are things. So the teaching makes a concession to that belief and says, okay, you think there are things. That which is aware of these things is not itself a thing. So it postulates awareness as nothing, empty or void. So we now have emptiness and form, nothing and something, which is a legitimate distinction to make as a concession to the belief there are things. But having made this distinction between emptiness and form, between nothing and something, we then have to, and this is what we were doing this morning, we were really exploring, not intellectually, although it was spoken in intellectual terms, but the exploration itself was very experiential. I was trying to guide you on an actual exploration of the relationship between things and nothing, between something and nothing. And hence we explored, how is it possible for something to arise out of nothing? Is it possible for something to disappear into nothing? How is it possible for nothing to become something? We were exploring this in our experience to see that that's actually not how it's happened. Nothing cannot become something.
Yes.
Something cannot disappear into nothing. Therefore, the reality of experience is neither something nor nothing. If we think it's something, then it's legitimate as a halfway stage to say reality is nothing, not a thing. But then that's a halfway stage. We then have to go beyond that and say reality is neither something nor nothing. And as I said this morning, the mind can't go further than that because the mind thinks in terms of opposites, something and nothing.
To me.
You see, even to call it awareness is to call it awareness as opposed to an object. The only reason it is necessary to conceptualize awareness is in response to our prior conceptualization of the object. Okay, if we've conceptualized objects, then we can conceptualize the awareness that is aware of that. So all of these teachings arise in response to our beliefs and feelings. If we didn't conceptualize objects in the first place, it wouldn't be necessary to conceptualize awareness. So all the teaching arises as a response to beliefs, ideas, feelings, situations. And it's legitimate for the teaching to make these provisional statements. Awareness is empty, etc. Emptiness is form, because they're all true relative to the belief that they are responding to. But in the absence of a question or a situation, there is no teaching. It's because ultimately it's not possible to conceptualize reality, which is why I said earlier, quoted the Shankaracharya saying, real thinkers don't think. In other words, people that have really taken thought all the way, thought comes naturally to an end because reality cannot be conceptualized or named. That is the ending of thought. Thought has brought itself to its own end. It's not a disciplined end. It's a natural end. Thought has, it's like a candle. All the wax has been burnt. There's no more fuel. The flame just comes to an end. There's nothing else left to burn. There's nothing else left to think about. So thought just comes to an end.
So when you talk about conceptualizing objects, the alternative is pure experiencing?
No, it's necessary to conceptualize objects. It is the natural state. Otherwise, we would just remain like animals or infants. There would just be an undifferentiated mass of experiencing. It is necessary to separate oneself out and arrive at the I am the body experience. That is, we're in objects here. We're separating out experience. Right. It is a necessary stage The ego is a natural stage that we pass through. But what is natural is to carry on passing through that stage and arrive at the recognition of our true nature.
Right. So would that be pure experiencing?
No, that's pure awareness.
Pure awareness.
Pure experiencing is what the fish and the bird and the newborn infant experience.
Ah, okay.
And what Finn is experiencing now. Finn doesn't know that he is a dog, that he is lying in a room. For Finn, as far as we know, forgive me, Finn, for talking on your behalf, but as far as we know, Finn's experience is one undifferentiated mass of experience that is not separated out into me, a dog, and everyone and everything else. In other words, Finn doesn't have an ego. He hasn't developed the I am the body experience. He is in a pre-egoic condition. There is only experience.
Okay.
And that is not the same as the one who has recognized the nature of all experience to be infinite consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Although in both cases, in Finn's case, there is just experience. In the case of the one who has recognized the true nature of experience, there is just consciousness. In both cases, there's only one thing. So there are some similarities between the pre-egoic condition and the post-egoic condition.
I was thinking before, during the meditation, that without words, there aren't things like we were speaking about. You were speaking about thoughts, emotions, feelings, sensation, but what are these?
Yeah.
These are not things in
Yes.
themselves.
Yes.
Because
What are they? But then what is your experience? Because
Well,
your experience
using-
is not nothing.
Yeah.
Yes? This current experience that each of us is having, what is it? What is there?
It's very difficult to explain it in words because it's definitely something. Something is going on.
Something that is not a thing. Yes.
Yes.
But if you were to try to use words, I understand they're not quite accurate, but if you would try to use words to describe your experience, what words would you choose?
Well, there is a sense of aliveness,
Yes.
wakefulness, light, and knowing.
Yes, that's it. Ask yourself the question, do I ever come in contact with anything other than the knowing of my experience? Try now, look around, wherever you want, so-called inside thoughts, feelings, sensations, so-called outside sounds, sights, textures. Is there anything there apart from the knowing of it?
No.
Apart from the consciousness of it?
No.
That's it.
Because everything it is this consciousness.
Everything, our experience is only the knowing of it. Knowing is all that is there. And that knowing is not known by another knowing over here. It is that knowing that is knowing itself. We can't even say it's the knowing of experience, because what experience do we have of experience separate from the knowing of it? It's not even the knowing of experience. It's just knowing. It's just pure knowledge. When I say pure knowledge, I mean knowledge that has no subject or object in it. No entity that does the knowing, and no object that is known. just, and we can't even call it knowledge or consciousness because these words derive their meaning from something other than themselves. So ideally, it's unnameable. Here we give it a name because we want to speak of it. But on the understanding that even the names consciousness or knowledge or being aren't quite right. Words were designed to describe objects. And we are trying to use these abstract symbols to describe not objects, but the reality of experience, the unnameable reality of experience. Which is not some abstract thing. It's this that each of us, that is being experienced now. It's all there is to experience.